guys.
Yeah,
What up,
yeah. I
this
watched the
already?
first one.
How time does
I watched
fly.
watched the first one. I was insulted by my forehead being in the camera so hard. So
Everybody else was insulted as well.
what can
And
you
Vinny's
we
do?
have
forehead.
a
Welcome
we
to
have a
Vinny's
fourth member
forehead
of the we have
show.
a fourth member of the crew. It's Vinny's
Yeah,
forehead.
yeah. The,
We
Vinny,
love Vinny
yeah,
and his forehead, you guys. Come on.
aka
He's got
Boketta,
his own. He's
aka
got his
the
own voice.
human
Like,
antidote.
hey,
You know.
what you guys talking about over there?
Hey, lean in,
What you talking about, forehead?
lean in a second. Okay, get a little closer. Get a little closer.
It's a hey, forget about it.
Yeah,
Forget about
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Oh, God, you
Roll
guys.
the carpets up. Let's get out of here.
All right. Yay, yay, yay. All right.
Welcome,
So,
welcome, episode 3, which you hopefully you'd have enjoyed 1 and 2. And thank you
as much
for
as we've enjoyed making it,
facts. Thank you for listening.
I think today we're going to talk about one of the most common questions that everybody has when it comes to all the things that are going down. What's the fix? What's the solution? What do we do? I think that's on
my
everybody's
favorite
mind. They're all
go-to.
trying to kind of figure out, yeah, your favorite question. So, we all know that we're stuck in a
Guilty.
rut, right? Everything's definitely messed up. I think that's the one thing that everybody does agree on, that things are messed up. This isn't the way it should be. Where we don't agree, not just between us three, is what's the solution? How do we fix it? And so I think that's a pretty good topic for today, for sure.
Oh
And I think
yeah,
that what we've come to find is that there is no answer right now, or at least no one answer.
right.
Yeah.
I've started to lean really heavily on that book that I'm reading. It's a really good one. I highly recommend it, not to just you two, but to anybody watching the show here that would be interested in learning about the dawn. It's called "The Dawn of Everything: A New History of Humanity," by two authors, David Graeber, Graeber, Wengrow, Wengrow. And basically, the premise of the book is just offering a different perspective on the history of our ancestors. They are challenging this kind of public school notion that our ancestors transitioned through this very clean sequence of events, right? If you guys remember in school, we were taught that humanity kind of advanced in stages, right? It started as, Neanderthal man, and then it progressed from Neanderthal into, the very basic forms of civilizations, tribes. And then we moved into agricultural tribes where we transitioned away from hunter gatherer, right? But it's all very neat according to how they teach us in school. But what David Graeber and David Wengrow have found through art and anthropological evidence um, is that society and the way that societies were organized historically were widely varying. There was no clean transition between the stages. There essentially was no like stage at all. It was just humans being human and experimenting with all sorts of different structures, hierarchies, economies, cultures, whatever. But there was infinite possibility back in those times because people had the freedom to do so. And I think where we find ourselves now is somehow or another we've landed in this ditch or this hole where everybody seems to think that one type of society has to apply for everyone, and we all have to follow those rules, right? I think we can agree that's kind of where we're stuck. And that's what the book examines, not just the fact that we're stuck in one form of society, but how did we even get here? How in the world did humanity find itself in a situation where we went from experimenting in all sorts of infinite different versions of what humanity and society can look like to, no, it's got to be just this one. And there has to be one solution to how we fix this problem that we're in. Well, I think if we take any type of lesson from our ancestors and the different forms of society that they constructed, I think the lesson we can learn from that is that there's also multiple different solutions to how we fix this problem that we find ourselves in. And so I think it's interesting when people kind of come back with that. It's kind of their instant gut reaction to, okay, how, we know we're in a problem, but what's the solution, right? They always frame it that way, the solution, as if there's only one. And there really isn't. There are so many of us who have so many good ideas. Why don't we take a collection of all the best ones and, turn that into something better. You know what I mean? Day. Obviously I think society is getting to a point where we can all agree that something is most definitely wrong. This is not the way that, this should be. This is not the best that humanity could do. This is just where we happen to find ourselves. And this also was not inevitable, right? This was not the one version of how people were ultimately going to organize themselves. This is just what kind of happened to be, just like in the movie, the Avengers series, right? When Doctor Strange is kind of analyzing, what is it, 14 million different types of scenarios when they get to the part where they're fighting Thanos. Um, he considers all of the different possibilities, and of course, he ends up finding that there's only one in which they win. But we're in a similar situation right now where we're fighting a battle, top versus bottom, us versus them, the 99% versus the 1%. And we're all, I think, trying to kind of like go through those 14 million different scenarios. We
Mhm.
know something is wrong, but what exactly is the one thing that's wrong?
Now,
Well,
are
we know
you
the school
Doctor
system's
Strange
messed
in
up.
this situation, Tim? Are you done?
I like to think so. I've considered a lot of the possibilities. I just haven't landed on that one single solution yet.
Well, like you said, I don't think there is one. I mean, there's multiple, but that's
Well, I
the
mean,
battle here. We're
Yes.
yeah.
that's what
Who
they
are
painted
you?
for you. They wanted to give you. They wanted to listen. It's every movie. It's everything you see. Everybody wants a
Yeah,
superhero. Somebody's gonna come
yeah.
out. Somebody's gonna save us. Somebody's gonna have the answers. Somebody's gonna know everything. Like that's not the case. Listen, if we're so foolish to think that we know all the answers to everything, then we are the fools ourselves. Like we need to rely upon each other. There's things that people bring to the table that are beneficial for us all. So let's not demean or deter somebody just because we don't feel that what they're doing is as important as maybe what we're doing or how we feel. Everybody has a right to feel, yeah, a specific way. So to sit here and feel like when we have a conversation or speak about certain things and say, uh, this is how we feel or we like to see these things change, like there's one or two ways out of this, okay? And we all understand. It can be the mass revolt and we can have a revolution and turn around and just, get back to the basics of everything, you know what I mean? And kind of just go from there and see what happens. But will greed inevitably take over again and somebody try to pivot control of a mass amount of land or whatever the case may be, group up and take over, get people to work for them so we can say, hey, and do the same thing and pivot us right back to where we are eventually again. Not to say that that would be the way it could end up changing everything, or do we do this in a civilized manner to where we're not using people as GI Joes and GI Janes and putting their lives at risk when they're not really understanding the things that they're going in for? Because if there's one thing that I can realize is that I've been here for 42 years and I've never seen in my time anything come over here in a sense, bar the big, event. The one time I've never seen anything in a sense of what's happening there happen here. So it just makes you question in a sense of, you need to formulate your own ideas and break down the information you're learning to get to some feeling of how you feel in the scenario and situation, and then work with people to get to the best results to fix it peacefully so we can sustain life. Simple.
Yeah. Were you
Like
talking about Pearl Harbor when you mentioned the event? Well, we're not on.
Wait,
I was asking because we're not on TikTok. We don't have to use TikTok
Yeah,
no,
singing
I
you
was
don't
image
have
here.
to.
no,
Yeah,
no, no,
you
sorry,
don't have
sorry. Yeah,
to.
I'm too used to that, but I
What
was
is the
talking
word?
about 9/11.
Censor.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah. You don't have to
barring
censor
barring what
yourself here.
barring what anybody says, for that part, that was a big event per se for my lifetime of being here as well. We feel like we're trying to resolve this in a peaceful way because we're scared. You know what I mean? Like you have to get back down to the brass tacks of it. We're all scared, or somebody would have been doing something already.
9/11, I feel like, taught us that it is possible for humanity to come together, even though we feel like it's so far from reality right now. Like it proved that we can come together as human beings for
Mhm.
one cause, right?
kind of going
Yeah.
along with what Vinny said, I like that he brought up those points. So yeah, 9/11 is definitely the first major event that, all of us have really experienced, especially in our lifetime. um and it's funny to think, about this whole idea about, they peddle this fear on the news, right? They're constantly saying that, oh, we have to watch out for the other governments of the world because, if we don't, then, something could happen here in America. But if you look at history, the last time that America ever had an attack by a foreign country on our soil was in Pearl Harbor when Japan, struck Hawaii. That's the only time, that the United States of America has really seen any type of, attack on our land. We're far too big, we're far too powerful. And yet American people still allow the news to kind of cultivate this fear within them that, oh, Iran can't have a nuclear weapon because, oh, heaven forbid, if they did, then, the people of America would be in absolute danger, which is a hilarious concept in and of itself. Because, just if you listen to how even the American people talk about, people in Iran and even in other countries, most Americans have no problem with the people in other countries. You know, and when they peddle these stories on the news, what they're really basically saying is they're projecting. The government of the United States is projecting its own fear of, other governments having these weapons, whatever, onto the American people, and the people are just absorbing it. The
Mm.
Iranian government's not a danger to the American people. It might be a danger to the American government because the governments are the ones that are screwing each other over. They're the ones that are kicking the ball back and forth and having all these conflicts and basically bickering like these childish mafia families. But as far as the ordinary people go, we're totally fine. And I think people kind of misconstrue also the message when they hear things like Iran saying, oh, death to America. They don't mean death to all of America. They mean death to the American government. Because how many
Government.
times has the yeah, how many times has the American government gone in and just absolutely messed things up? With Iran specifically, we're on number 3. The first was in 1953 when the leader Mossadegh was trying to nationalize Iranian oil. Western capitalists didn't like that, so they went and performed a coup and installed a regime that was friendly to Western capital, Western interests. Then in 1979, they did it again. Now, by this point, the Iranians had kind of figured out what had happened in 1953. So the Iranian, government, especially, and the people, were not particularly happy about what they had found out that America and the CIA specifically had done over there. Well, you got to fix that. So there's coup number 2. 1979. Now here we are, same thing, number 3. And the funniest part of all of it really is, how long have they been talking about Iran having a nuclear weapon? They've been talking about it for 30, 40 years, and it's always been the same story, especially if you listen to Netanyahu. Oh, they're 2 weeks away. Oh, they're months away. Oh, they could have it in a couple of years. It's been that same story for 30 to 40 years. Not once have they ever, developed a weapon. And it's been over 200 years since the state of Iran has even instigated a major conflict with anybody.
That's
So
so
You're
crazy.
completely right,
it's
and not to negate, not to throw that off, but was that a Scottish or an Irish accent you had there, or what?
that was my impression of Bibi Netanyahu's deep voice. Oh,
Or
oh,
was that a
they are very, very close to
pirate?
having a nuclear.
Beautiful. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. No, but it's
Thank you.
true.
Sorry.
Listen,
That
it's
he
true.
Yeah.
was totally his statements were completely, absolutely, 100% true. It was just
Yeah.
that
Yeah, but it's like you
that
could break
accent
it
threw
down
me
to
off a little bit.
you could break it down to the formality of not even needing these things. Like people, like why the hell are we in competition with other people on the same planet that we're on? We need this thing to thrive together. Like what the fuck are we doing? Like are we we're we're gonna be we're
Exactly.
gonna break down and be that ignorant as a person to turn around and say that these other people don't deserve it what we have. Like, dude, this is Earth. And regardless of what line you stand on, what side of the ocean, wherever you're at, it's Earth, and we all need this bad boy to work. It's that simple.
Say we got to that point that you're talking about. Say we're in this new world where everything is
Mhm.
free, we're living our lives, and there's no babysitters. How do we keep once we're in this new world, this new way
Mhm.
of living? How do we keep people coming together, or once if not to keep them, but if we see people start coming together to try to take us back to this whole government thing,
Hmm.
How do we stop that when it starts happening? Are there police in your
Right.
situation?
No, not even police.
Okay. So how do we
I'll kind
stop
of
it?
I'll bring an example into it, as far as like how they did it again, using our ancestors heavily because I think we can learn a lot from them. Kandiaronk was a chief in the Wendat Nation, which was kind of like a group of like four Iroquois, speaking tribes, and he had amazing conversations with the Europeans about like the differences between the European lifestyle, which is what we have now, and the Native American lifestyle that they had back then as well. One thing I find interesting is that in their version of society, no, they didn't have a police force. They didn't even have courts. They didn't have judges. They didn't have any of that. They just used logic and reason and communication in order to figure things out. And if a member of the tribe injured another member of the tribe, whatever, if that was through theft or like physical injury, whatever, the member of that tribe had to basically pay restitution in some form or fashion, whether that was in, the money that they used it back then, or if it was in like, giving them things that they needed or just restoring what they stole. The consequences were immediate. There wasn't this month long or years long court process to go to before you end up, with, whatever your sentence is. But to kind of answer your question, how do we stop people from essentially rising up and trying to take something? And that's going to be through culture. We have to change the culture. And one last example I'll give you that's related to that is I forget the name of the guy who did the studies, but there have been studies that were done on baboon troops. And in these baboon troops, when the studies began, these baboon troops were heavily patriarchal, and they were quite violent, just like we see with society today. And what
Hmm.
happened was after the male baboons in these troops died because of disease or whatever, right? The troops automatically reorganize themselves into more cooperative, less volatile, more matriarchal, kind of like horizontal, no hierarchy type deal.
Hmm.
And the way that they maintained that through the generations was through, again, culture. Educating, they kind of the elder baboons educated the younger baboons to behave in this more cooperative society as opposed to just relying on somebody above, a violent patriarch with a rule book and a stick to just kind of like coerce, people into behaving because you're basically afraid of the consequences. That's not freedom. That's not civilization. That's a hostage situation. If the only reason your people behave is because they're afraid of getting arrested or because they're afraid of going to jail or prison, that's not order. That's coercion,
Hmm.
and that's not fair. So we have to figure out a way to educate people that not only do we need to be more cooperative, but two, we have to have the freedom and the gumption to be able to defend ourselves if for some reason the exception to the rule comes up, right? And somebody tries to overtake, overstep, conquer, whatever, those
Right.
people have to be put in their place and we have to be willing to accept that as okay. Uh, do firearm, honestly, if society existed the
Do we
way that
need
it's
them?
supposed to, and we don't, we really don't.
Okay.
There's honestly no reason for firearms to exist. And if people would learn to cooperate and maintain that version of culture, no,
Okay.
that's overkill. It's
Listen,
far
it's
too
it's
much.
it's what society pivoted us to want to think. Listen, we don't
Yeah.
come out in birth and wanting to attack something that's near us or around us. Like we come out as infantile beings that
Right.
don't know anything, that need help, that need someone to take care of us and love us and be kind to us. And somewhere along the lines, it's we're telling our kids as we're growing, as we're raising them to be kind and share and take care of other people and be nice. And then all of a sudden, it's you got to be scared and you got to be worried and you got to be nervous because people have plotted and turned the thing. Like if it's hard, I know it's hard to wrap your mind around the idea of what Tim states because it's so nerve-wracking to think that if it became a solo society, to think that someone wouldn't just want to go ahead and overstep their boundary upon you. And yes, listen, but
Mhm.
like it's been put this way. This is why you see the things you see on TV. This is why you have protection systems for your home. This is why they give you this amendment and these rights to hold these things, because it's literally putting you in a formality of understanding that you have to fear something somewhere along the lines in your lifetime. When literally, if you
Right.
change the narrative and everybody's perspective and mindset, that you can change to love. Yes, it's good. It's going to be hard as shit, and we might not be the ones that see that done, and it's a vast fucking project. But listen, where
Hmm.
are we going to go but keep reoccurring the same situation and scenario? And if it had to stay at a basis of continuing the formality of government in a sense that we have now, it would be open and simple formatted bills, nothing hidden on the side underneath. The bill would
Mm,
state what it is, it would say what it is, and that would be what it is. There doesn't have to be anything at nighttime. There doesn't have to. There'd be more control. You don't. It's
Hmm.
insane.
yep. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
What insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And that's what we've been doing
Right.
for 250 years. And that's why we're here, guys.
And you can see the people that we've had disagreements with, and believe you me, I've been on a few hard end shares of those, but they're coming back in now. And I'm not saying like to me, you know what I mean? They still may feel some type of way, but they're coming back and they're like in the conversation now. Like they're like, you can see the change and you can see the growth. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah. It's a
Hmm.
growth, I feel we're all growing. Nobody's perfect. We're all growing. We're all evolving. We're all seeing, opening our eyes to certain things that we have not seen before. And it's amazing to watch. I
Hmm.
mean, even all of us, nobody's excluded from this. So,
Yeah, yeah, it's how it starts. Like, look, we
yeah,
have to understand, like, depending on which way this goes or how it goes. Because listen, I mean, I don't think anybody's really going after the revolution thing until something makes you uncomfortable here enough to have to do something like that. Because everybody's still living in their
we're not ready.
comforts.
Yeah,
Uh, right. You know, so if we're going to push this to the narrative of trying to speak about things and make a better change for everybody, like keeping the conversation going and changing that narrative, we have to understand that we might not be able to reap the benefits, but it's
back.
upon us to put ourselves beside ourselves to help the next person out and to help the next generation and to help the next set of people. Like there's younger kids than us that are paying attention to this stuff more than people in the past have, and it's great.
Yeah,
Like it needs to be done, so maybe we can get some really good people in here to turn around and make a change if it stays in the manner of which way it is. You
yeah,
know what I mean? Like
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're
Hmm.
not doing this for us,
the
you guys. We're
conver-
doing this
the
for the next
conversing.
generation and the generation after that. This isn't about us. This isn't about us, but it is about our kids and our grandchildren and beyond.
Right.
So,
In conclusion, especially since we kind of are on the topic of solutions, right? Um, there are four things, really, four things that humanity needs that I think that if we met those needs at the very minimum, everything else, all the other different complexities of life could be figured out. And one thing I know about you, especially Steph, is that you definitely still believe that the system can, in some way, be fixed from the inside. And I do agree with one point that you're very fond of, and that's that there has to be a transition, right? There just can't be an instant, snap the finger type of reset. If there was somebody to get into office, right, and do something similar to what, like, it was Biden who did the student loan forgiveness, right? Or did Obama do that?
Obama started it, I believe.
Started it, right?
Biden
Okay,
continued it,
so
I believe.
right. So essentially, that was the government pretty much nullifying these contracts that these students had that required them to pay back student loans, right? If somebody could get into office and essentially do the same thing with home loans, nullify all of the contracts of all the home loans, right? And make housing and shelter completely free, right? It can be done. In a nation that prints its own fiat currency, it can be done, Housing as infrastructure, make that free. Then the next thing is decentralize the private owned utility companies, right? So, like your electric and your water company, those are owned by private corporations. Decentralize those and turn those into public works again, which are then built and maintained on a volunteer basis. There are already people who have the knowledge, the skill, and the passion to do that, and they will. The next thing is food. You know, we have to transition away from this centralized industrial farming model that we've got. So we need to start reintroducing fruit trees and berry bushes into our infrastructure. That'll take time. But in the meantime, our grocery stores could be turned into government subsidized food co-ops, which again could be maintained on a volunteer basis. Farmers still grow the food, truckers still get the trucks to the food, but make the food free. Again, make it a public utility and make it part of the infrastructure. And then finally, healthcare, because for a lot of us, our health is outside of our control. We shouldn't have to pay for that. And again, that's something that can be decentralized. A lot of these hospitals, privately owned, it's a private for profit corporation. Decentralize that,
Prison.
deprivatize it, and again, turn it
Yeah.
into a public work where the people who already have the knowledge and the skills heal people again on a rotating volunteer basis. If we could meet just those 4 basic needs right there, not
Tim, I want
hard,
to choke you right now.
everything else could be taken care of slowly,
Tim,
comfortably, all that. What's up?
I want to choke you right now. I took everything in me to let you finish that. I almost didn't get there.
Sorry.
My brother, you have not listened to the podcast. That's all that tells me. Why do you think I'm
Anyways.
pushing these candidates so hard? Is because this is what they are fighting for. This is why they want to be in office. They're not just there to
They're
get their money.
fighting-
They're there to get their check. Nah.
Right.
Hold on.
But they're fighting for affordability. They're fighting for affordability. I'm talking about
No.
making those
A lot
things
of them
free.
are talking about universal health care. Almost every single one of them. Most of them are talking about fixing homelessness and this whole taxation and insurance shit and the medical shit and the education and all of this is being addressed by different candidates or by.
But there needs to be limitations put on these people for
term limits?
like it needs to be changed to where when you get in, if you're running on something, if you're not pushing that to a certain degree by a certain length of time, your first year or whatever the case may be, if you haven't showed forward progress for whatever the hell you were sitting there running on, then things need to be reevaluated. You're like, something needs to happen. There needs to be a penalty for that person because you sat here and got on TV and said, hey, or whatever the case, you ran to be elected for these things, whether it be education or whatever people wanted you in for, and then you don't do those things. You're not trying to push towards and I'm not saying you can have these things done. Like, yes, you're one person pushing for this, but if people end up aligning 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people that all agree upon the same thing in the same state, things can get changed. But if you get in there and you turn suit, there should be a penalty for that. You just lied to the people that voted you in.
Well, yeah, that's not going to happen with the money.
Put them on a probation.
Yeah.
Put them
Why
on
do we have all
probation
these fucking standards that
just
they're
like
not
they do
held
at
to?
work, right?
Yeah, you got a probationary period at work sometimes. Yeah, correct. But no, like I said, these people that are running are not doing it for the money.
Get donations.
They're not doing it for the money though. They're stopping their lives. They're putting their lives on hold. Like one guy that I just interviewed, Jeff Pixley. In fact, Oklahoma, Mr. Tim. Jeff Pixley was months away from retiring after 35 years of serving the country, and now he's serving because he stopped. He left the service to run because it's so needed right now. They're not doing this for self-profit. They're doing this because it's so needed. And that's why I try to push it so much. And even if it's just a backup like plan,
right?
If we
hey,
don't make it to happen to midterms or whatever the case is, however this plays out, we don't know. It's at least a backup plan, So that's why I push it so hard.
But you're right for the system you're in.
Yeah, I mean,
you know what I mean? Like you're right for feeling that way in the system you're in. It's validated. Like
I just believe in the people that are running for the reasons that are for the people and not for the people that are running for their own personal gain. And I do believe them because it's so needed right now, and they're literally putting their lives on hold to actually run for the right reasons.
You have hope in mankind.
Yeah, I do, and so do you.
You have the same hope.
So do you guys for feeling that we can get to where we need to be. At the same time, you see what I'm saying?
Right, but so does Tim.
Mhm.
That's what I
even
just
in the manner of how he's thinking in the soulless society, like, you
That's
know what
what
I
I
mean?
just
Like, you
said.
still have the belief in people to be good.
Yes,
Like,
yes.
and it
Inherently, we
all
are
correlates
inherently
to us
good.
working
We are
together
taught hate.
somehow.
We are taught to
Gotta
be
do it together.
fearful. We
Yeah,
gotta come
anger,
There's my
together.
forehead
violence,
again.
and
Damn
hate
it.
Darn
are
it.
definitely
Let's do it.
learned.
You're gonna do it and like it, okay?
Right? Oh, plugging O'Reilly's.
We got to do the Vinny. Everybody's gonna do the Vinny real quick. You gotta get it in there.
Yeah, you know what
All
I mean?
right.
Just
Yeah.
lean into your ideas.
Forget
you know?
about it.
I love my brothers.
So the moral of the story is there ain't one. Okay, you flip a coin and pick a side for a victim. The only outcare they
Mhm.
really cared about was income. I just hope I live long enough to get to live some. Okay, okay.
Hey.
That was a Looney
Absolutely.
Cloud.
I
Okay, a
love
rapper.
that.
Seriously.
Okay. It did sound familiar.
Shout out to that dude because that was amazing bars right there.
Spitting bars.
And to quote one of my favorite TikTok followers, go love your neighbor.
Yeah.
And I hope all your dreams come true. That's Eric.
Ah.
Absolutely.
All right. Love you guys. And love you all for
Thank you
being
guys.
here.
Yes. Wait for episode 4.
Yes.
That's
and
right.
Make sure you're here. Spotify, YouTube, and be here on next week, Thursday, episode 4, Tri-State of Mind. Love you all.
Let's get it.